Hey, good morning, everyone. Edward O'Daniel here, Dunamis Property Management. And I'm just here to drop another helpful tip for you guys. I monitor, again, for those people that don't know, I'm in the St. Louis, Missouri area. And I monitor a lot of our Facebook groups and just other user groups and things like that. Just for questions, comments, I always pick up little tips here and there, that problems that people have. But one of the things I've been noticing, honestly, quite a bit here lately is people post questions, and these are people who are like do-it-yourself landlords. So this is really what this is geared toward. It's just that person that's just do-it-yourself, and just the bad advice that you get on Facebook groups. First of all, if you're a do-it-yourself landlord, please take what you get for free with a grain of salt. What kind of experience does that person have and so forth. Because if you get the wrong advice, it can really hurt you. And I'm going to explain that here. I keep seeing a lot of posts that basically have people saying things like, hey, my tenants pulled a Houdini on me and they left in the middle of the night, and now, rent is due, they're late. Now, what do I do? How do I handle that? Well, here's my advice. First of all, anytime you have a tenant move out on you, there's always going to be, well, hopefully you collected a security deposit, and there's always going to be that to help out with paying for any damages that they do. But one of the things that you can do, if it's from a monetary perspective, is just find out all the charges that they're responsible for, back rent and everything else, and just simply send them to collections. Okay, find a good collections company and then let them go after it and handle it. Now, I've talked about collection clauses in a previous live. Check it out on my Facebook page if you haven't. If you do not have a collections clause in your lease, you absolutely should, because the collection clause basically just says that if you do have to send people to collection, that any collection company fees will be added on top of what they already owe you and not taken out of what they owe you. Sorry, my shirt came unbuttoned here. Sorry about that. It's just bothering me. But anyway, that's one of the things that you should have in your lease is a collections clause. So from a money perspective, just simply send in the collections, and then that's that. Okay, you should have gathered a rental application. You should have gathered social security numbers, driver's license, where they work at, things like that. All of that information can be sent to the collection company, making it a lot easier for you to track them down. Now, please pay attention. Here's the one thing that's going to get you in a jam, okay, from a do-it-yourself landlord. You cannot... Okay, if somebody leaves in the middle of the night, you cannot just, at least in the Missouri law, okay, guys, again, let me preface that. I'm in Missouri, and I know Missouri law, but not other states. So if somebody does move out, you can't just say, okay, they moved out, let me go in and start cleaning their stuff out and get the locks changed and start re-advertising it. Wrong. That's going to get you hurt. Okay, and here's the reason why. Just imagine the scenario. Imagine the scenario that somebody did leave, okay? And you as a landlord did not get your proper notification. You did not move them out legally and get the proper notice that you need to take ownership of it. You empty all of their stuff out. You change the locks, and all of a sudden, 2 or 3 weeks later, they decide to come back, okay? Who do you think is going to be in trouble? Do you think the tenant is going to be in trouble? Do you think when they call the police on you and say that, hey, somebody changed the locks on my house and somebody robbed me because they took everything I had out of here, and they start looking at the police and they show the police, like, here, officer, here's a copy of my lease that says I have authority to live in this house. Now, officer, unless you have something like a court order or a writ that's filed with the court that says I should not be here, then I still have legal ownership of this property, and I want you to arrest that person for vandalism and theft. That person being you, the do-it-yourself landlord. Do you see what I mean? You can't just go in there and take it out. They still have a legal lease, and even as a do-it-yourself landlord, you have to sit back and you have to be able to present yourself legally in the right position. Okay, you have to go to court, either that or you have to get them to sign a lease termination agreement that terminates their lease effective this day and has in there everything that, that anything that they have left in there after this lease date will be yours and so forth. And in which case, that's fine. All you're trying to do is get some kind of paperwork on your side that the tenant acknowledged that their lease is null and void, and that the lease termination agreement states that they no longer have access to the property, and anything left in there after a certain date, that lease termination date, is going to be your property. I mean, they don't have any access to it whatsoever. So that way, when the tenant ever comes back and they go, hey, officer, look, I've got a lease right here that says I need it here. This is where you throw up, hello, officer, I've got a lease termination agreement that said as of whatever last Monday, they were no longer residing here, and they signed it, and everything's good to go. So that's your sort of get out of jail free card. Not that you're going to go to jail. You get my point. I just use that as an example. But you want to go to either evict them and have the courts literally come in. If they won't sign the lease termination agreement, if you can't find them, then you have to take other legal means. Now, one of the things I try to explain to people, now, I can't write this in a Facebook post. It would be a novel, a small book. Maybe not a novel, but it'd be a small book, and I'm just not that keen on writing that much. So that's why I wanted to do a Facebook Live for those people that just says, please, please don't get yourself into a bind. Now, my question is, if that tenant moves out, what's the likelihood that they would actually come back in a few weeks? You know, what is that likelihood? Maybe not very much at all. Okay, it may happen in the fact that, you know, that they never come back and you never see them again. However, that one chance that they will come back is going to mess you up and put you in a position where you're wrong. Okay, so just if you're a do-it-yourself landlord, please make sure you get the proper documentation when somebody moves out. You need legal recourse if they ever call the police, because believe it or not, I'll give you an example. I had an eviction go wrong one time where we had an eviction. The sheriff came down there. Unfortunately, we were not able to meet with the sheriff because there were scheduling conflicts, and neither one of my team can meet down there. Well, the sheriff, if they go down there to evict them and nobody's there, the sheriff cannot officially serve the paperwork. So even though the eviction happened and, you know, the paperwork went through and the sheriff showed up, because a representative of my team was not there, that now the tenant's lease was still valid. The sheriff's execution order was not valid. Okay, so when we went and changed the locks, now she called the police on us. She sat back and called the police. We had to go down there and give her another key and let her back in to the place, even after she's been evicted. And then we had to go through the eviction process again, which, not the whole process, but it took another week or so to get her out. I would avoid you that pain. Okay, I would avoid you having that kind of trouble and getting egg in your face like that. Okay, now, like I said, it's highly unlikely that somebody would come back, especially if they know they owe you stuff, but just cover yourself, okay? Cover yourself, get a lease termination agreement, go through an eviction process with the court and have the sheriff come out and legally evict them, get a default judgment. And even if you get the default judgment from the court, that's even better, because now you have a judgment that you can send to the collection company, and now they can speed up the garnishment process, because now their lawyers don't have to go to court to get that judgment. You've already gotten it. Does that make sense? So do not just move out and move their stuff out, throw it all in the trash, change the locks, because that can get you into some severe trouble. Now, there's one other technique I'm going to give you guys here that I found out actually a couple of years ago, and it has to deal with the law regarding abandonment. Okay, look this up in your state. For Missouri, I hope I get this right, but in Missouri, if somebody abandons the property, meaning if they owe rent and the rent is owed beyond 30 days, they can't just be 2 days late. Okay, they have to owe you rent. So if they owe you on the 1st of the month, so let's just say this is in the middle of May right now, so say June 1st. So June 1st, after 30 days, June 30th, the day after June 30th, at that point, you can then post a notice, an abandonment notice on their door that just says you have not been here, you've clearly abandoned the property. You post a notice, you take a picture of it, you date the time and everything else, and you have to give it 10 days. From that point, 10 days even further. But if nobody's contacted you from posting it on the doors and so forth, then you can claim that you follow the right of procedure for abandonment, and then now you can officially go in without having a court order and without having any kind of a lease termination agreement. Now, the only thing that really sucks about that is, number one, you do have to wait 30 days and then an additional 10 days after that. So that's 40 days that you're waiting to regain control of your property. Now, that's not to say that you don't have the right to go in and do an inspection. Okay? And this is where it kind of gets in the gray area. But if somebody's gone, in our lease, we say we have the right to come and inspect the property with a 24 hours notice. So if you contact people by a legitimate means, meaning that you email them or text them, because in our lease, we don't have communication mechanisms to something as archaic as just mail. That's just too slow. So in our lease, we actually have the fact that texting and email are valid forms of communication with the information we have on file. And they sign off on that we can text you an email and, excuse me, and those communication methods are just as valid as a letter in the mail. Okay? So as long as we have that, they agree to it, then we're good to go. So if I text them at their number and I email them and say, hey, we're going to be there, in 2 days to inspect the unit for whatever, call it whatever you want. You don't need to give a reason. Okay? Then you can go in there and take a look at it. And if you see things that violate your lease, then you are allowed to make adjustments and corrections, meaning if it's dirty, if it's funky, if it's causing pest control problems, if the water is leaking, if you've got some sort of a problem in the house, you can then take action to help preserve your property. So to make sure like the doors are locked, to make sure the windows are locked, so nobody can keep coming in and out of the property. You get my point on this one here, but I'm kind of digressing a little bit, but you guys can understand. When you just have a property that goes vacant, please take your time to think about that. Don't believe me. You guys have seen the videos I posted here on my live with just this last time with this property and how the tenants sort of did me wrong, even though I did them a solid and took sort of pity on them for being homeless and in the Section 8 program. Watch that live video, but I won't go over that. But things happen, okay? And you might get upset that somebody leaves and you just may want to go in there and get stuff changed, but just make sure you cover yourself, okay? You can't just go in there and do that. You're the one that could potentially, and I say that in the sense of you could potentially be liable for all of their, if you threw away couch, if you threw away clothes, if you threw away TV, all of that stuff you would be liable to replace. And this is they could have picked up a couch from the alley and put it inside their house, but you have to buy a new couch, okay? You see what I mean? It's just stuff like that can even infuriate you even more after somebody moves out and then they come back and you figure, what right do they have? Well, they have a lease and you didn't do anything in your power to terminate that lease or to give you control back of the property. So please use those 3 techniques I use you in this video to just help you out. Don't just go in there and just take control of the property. I urge you, if you're a do-it-yourself landlord and you just have a couple of properties, the last thing you need to do is be hit with this and you lose even more money. And it could potentially be, if that person sues you for whatever reason, it could just cost you a lot more money than just following the proper procedure, waiting at most, if you're in Missouri, the 40 days to terminate that and to get them moved out. It's much easier. Okay? So anyway, that's sort of my tips on that. I hope you guys can just appreciate that. I'm just here to give you some good information, to let you know kind of how we run our business here in the property management business. We're in the business to protect our clients, but at the same time, we have to protect them almost from themselves, from their own anger. Because I understand I'm a property owner myself. We manage our own properties. But if something happens, you can't just think emotionally about this. You kind of have to think smart. Don't let the tenants or the professional tenant potentially get you into a situation where you can be in trouble. And now they have the upper hand. Don't let them do that. Okay? So guys, I hope you found this useful. If you found something, if your state's different, I'd love for you to throw something down here in the comments and just let me know what your procedures are, because I don't know procedures in all states. I know Missouri is more of a landlord-friendly state, which is why I like it. Other states are tenant-friendly states, which, quite frankly, I would probably never own property in those states if they're tenant-friendly, because people lose so much money. I've seen such horror stories come from states, where you almost have to pay the tenants thousands of dollars to move out of your building, even though they're not paying rent. How crazy is that? I mean, that's like crazy. So anyway, I would never be able to do that, because I would probably end up going postal psycho on somebody and I would be in jail and wouldn't have a business. So this is Edward O'Daniel, Dunamis Property Management here in the St. Louis area. If you're looking for a property manager, please give us a call. We'd love to be able to talk to you. Number's 314-384-5151. All right, guys. Have a good Sunday and take it easy. Bye-bye.